Welcome. Welcome to the Iowa City Iowa City Community School District School Board meeting on Tuesday, April the 26th. My name is Chris Lynch, and I call this meeting to order. I want to start by thanking those in the audience and those on TV for taking an interest in our district business. I'd like to start tonight by introducing those at the table with me. To my right is Superintendent Steve Murley and Directors Lori Rotland, Phil Hemingway, Brian Kersling, Latasha Deloche, Tom Yates, Chris Liebig, and Recording Secretary Kim Colvin. The public is reminded if they wish to speak, they need to complete a speaker form found at the table in the lobby and turn it in. During community comment, people may speak to the board about topics relevant to the district. All community comment directed at non-agenda and agenda items shall take place at the beginning of the meeting during the community comment portion of the agenda. And the first item on the agenda tonight is community comment. Thank you for taking interest in the Iowa City Community School District and for your willingness to share your comments. You're reminded to give your name, address, the topic you wish to speak. You may talk to the board about topics relevant to the district. All community comment will take place at the beginning of the meeting and shall be limited to 4 minutes per speaker. Initial community comment, to the extent necessary, will be limited to 1 hour. Remaining community comment will take place at the end of the meeting. To the extent you're commenting on items not on our posted agenda, the board may ask follow-up questions of speakers, but is prohibited by Iowa open meeting law from responding to questions from speakers or from engaging in substantive discussion regarding non-agenda items. First up tonight is Carolyn Dittrell, and on deck will be Sarah Barone.
I'm Caroline Dearly, but first of all, I'd like to ask, I may not have understood what you said. If you have comments on an item that is on the agenda.
It all takes place right now.
It all takes place
Yes.
right now. Okay, well, my name is Caroline Dieterle, and I live on Walnut Street in Iowa City. And I'm here to talk to you about the integrated pest management item that's on the agenda later. I've been part of the committee that has been working on this for months. And I was very distressed to look at the final draft of the policy that you're about to consider tonight because it had the word economic alternative on it. And those are the words that got us into trouble in the first place last fall that resulted in the community outrage and the committee. Because if you think about most economical, that depends a great deal on how you view that. If you look at it as a cost-benefit analysis and you simply look at it as hours of man labor versus the cost of the pesticide, you're going to find that the most economical alternative is always going to be to spray poison around the gardens and the lawns. But if you think about it, that too often people fail to take into consideration the entire cost, the ecological cost, the environmental cost, the health cost. That's what we're talking about here. And it's easy to externalize your costs and say, well, all we have to worry about is labor hours and the cost of the chemicals. What you're doing then is you're externalizing the cost of the toll that this takes on individual children who then become ill or disabled in some way from exposure to these chemicals. And I would urge you tonight that you not pass the policy including the most economical alternative, because it will be a slap in the face to everybody who cares about this issue and has worked on it for such a long time. So the rest of the statement is fine, but most alternative, the alternative of the least expensive has got to go. Thank you.
Thanks, Caroline. Sarah? Next up would be Jenny Metmayer.
Hi, everyone. everyone. I'm Sarah Barron, 1903 Grantwood Street. I'm here tonight on behalf of the Coalition for Racial Justice. Thanks for the opportunity to talk to you. I want to start by thanking you for your ongoing commitment to equity issues. Racial equity in particular seems to be a difficult subject for historically white institutions like the Iowa City Community School District to address, to discuss, and discuss well. So thank you for keeping at it. We want to give a really big congratulations to everyone who was involved in allowing and facilitating the Student Experiences Survey that you're going to be hearing more about later today. That the survey explicitly asked about race and disaggregated the data by racial group is critical to its ability to provide us with that kind of meaningful data. And that the survey further categorized age and gender and socioeconomic status in its responses is also helpful. And where those categories overlay each other, speaking to the specific experiences and perceptions of Black girls, for example, we see an even more complex and more accurate picture. And the CRJ will be paying careful attention to how you use that data moving forward on your strategic goals. We also want to urge you to carry forward some of the broader lessons of the survey, like listening to student voices. They spoke about some important truths about representation in their curriculum, fairness in school discipline, access to adult mentors in the schools, and the climate among their peers. And their voices are too often overlooked when we make our plans, despite the fact that they're the ones directly impacted and that they're the holders of that unique knowledge and experience. So let's keep continuing to do that. Working with community partners. The UI Public Policy Center is right in our backyard. They did a fantastic job. Asking complex questions in search of complex solutions. As I think you figured out by now, if you come up with an easy solution to all of our equity problems, it's probably a terrible solution. And continuing to look at and expect from your administration that you're going to act to ensure equity in opportunities, equity in experiences, and equity in outcomes. They're connected, but they're not the same, and each is critically important. Again, the Coalition for Racial Justice wants to say that we're with you as you move forward toward your strategic goals, and we're with you as you continue to improve your ability to discuss race and address it explicitly in our student outcomes. Thanks very much.
Thanks, Sarah. Jenny, on deck is Rock Nicole.
Jenny Medemeyer. I live at 1710 North Dubuque Road. I'm on the IPM committee, and I'm also a member of the Exterior Subcommittee, and I'm here tonight to present the IPM committee minority response to the policy that you'll be getting tonight. Regarding the IPM policy before you, the entire IPM committee could agree upon the two-page draft with the exception of 2 words in the second section, third paragraph, that starts, using economical and least hazardous control methods. Since 7 of the 16 members present voted to remove the words economical and, we are asking the board to only approve this document with the words removed. This will be in the spirit of the original charge of bringing forward a policy that has a consensus agreement by the entire committee. We believe including the word economical in the policy undermines the work of the committee. Working together, we have made great strides towards reducing pesticide exposures to children and staff members. These changes have required creativity, resourcefulness, and putting long-term goals and safety ahead of economy and ease. The IPM task force was created in August 2015 in response to community concerns about the district's use of glyphosate, a chemical labeled a probable carcinogen by the World Health Organization, to trim grass around playgrounds, fence lines, trees, garden beds, bike racks, and other areas in place of manual trimming. Due to the limited staff of the grounds crew, the grounds management asserts it is impossible to eliminate the use of chemicals along fence lines and in garden beds. But by the inclusion of the word economical in the IPM policy, we will be supporting long-term dependence on these chemicals. Herbicides are being used as a labor-saving tool. We do not want to allow this labor-saving tool because of its public health threat to the applicators, staff, and to our children. This gets at the very heart of the original complaint and the reason why a large number of community members have given many hours of service to this committee over the last year. We understand that the district faces serious budget issues, but cannot support a policy that leaves an open door to continued or increased use of these potentially carcinogenic chemicals. The grounds care staff has the knowledge and experience to maintain chemical-free grounds, but requires a commitment from the board and the administration to do so. It's better to have grounds that are not picture perfect than to risk the health of our children. The county and the city of Iowa City are eliminating the use of pesticides entirely. We hope the school district will follow their example. Thank you.
Thanks, Jenny. Rockne? Next up will be Julie Robinson.
Rockne Cole, and I live at 1607 East Court Street. As many of you know, I serve on the Iowa City Council. I am not appearing in that capacity, and I am not intending to speak on their behalf. I'm urging you, I'm speaking as a community member, I'm urging you to adopt the concerns of the Minority Report. You know, I think when we have these community controversies, it's easy to sort of say, well, this is just sort of represents a small number of people. This represents widespread community concern about the excessive use of herbicides as well as pesticides. As many of you know, the province of Ontario, as well as the state of New York, has completely banned the use of cosmetic pesticides. And think about that for a second. You don't get that major legislation through unless it's based upon sound scientific evidence, and specifically relating to concerns of public health. I do want to commend the school board, the fact that you've made this such a critical working committee and put so many members on this particular board. Thank you very much for doing that. We're so close to getting a good and sensible policy. I think that the staff does raise some legitimate concerns, but I think we can work forward to represent the community consensus on this. And I think obviously economical, that's an important word, but we really do need to make sure that we take into consideration the concerns of Minority Report. And perhaps something the board won't want to do is to defer to allow additional time to get essentially community consensus behind this entire report. Thank you very much for your time, the fact that you have considered this to be a very serious community issue. And again, I urge you to adopt the Minority Report. Thank you.
Thanks, Rockne. Julie? And then be Anne Marie Poolman.
Good evening. My name is Julie Robinson. I'm the principal at Mann Elementary, and my address is 3500 Cumberland Ridge Road in North Liberty. I'm here tonight to speak about the proposed elementary boundary changes. I've been in Iowa City since 1986, and for those of you doing the math, that's 30 years. And in those 30 years, this is the first time that I've ever come to speak in front of the board. I share that with you because I hope it helps you understand how strongly my staff and I feel about this issue. During my time as assistant principal and then principal at Penn Elementary, we experienced the transition of students due to the opening of Wickham, and then Van Allen, and then Garner. I supported those moves, and I met with parent groups to encourage them to support the moves because I knew it would not put students at a disadvantage. I feel quite differently about the boundary changes proposed for Mann Elementary. All of the students who were displaced at Penn during that time spoke English as their first language, as did their families. This is not the case at Mann. The majority of students and families affected by the proposed change do not speak English as their first language, and in fact, many of their families do not speak English at all. Iowa City School District has spent thousands of dollars, and the Mann staff has participated in hundreds of hours of professional development related to English language learners. Our staff has worked tirelessly to provide the specialized instruction, learning supports, and family services that our students and their families need. If you were to drive down Dodge Street right now, you would find Mann's parking lot full and all of the lights on for our weekly ELL Family Learning Night. You'd see the bus that brings the families to us. You'd see the food and the books that our families will take home with them, nourishment for the body and the mind. You'd see the one-on-one tutoring for students, you'd see adult English classes, and you'd see basic Spanish literacy classes for adults who could not yet read or write in their own language. Mann's location provides a unique opportunity to partner with the University of Iowa. Because we're within walking distance, we have many university students who complete practicum and student teaching assignments at Mann. In addition, we have a number of tutors and volunteers. This year alone, we've had more than 100 University of Iowa students work at Mann with our students. This includes students who tutor at our site for their literacy and their math methods courses. We've partnered with the Iowa Reading Research Center to pilot ELL family literacy modules. We've had University of Iowa professors and instructors visit our school on a weekly basis to work with university and MAN students. In addition to the College of Education, we have partnerships with the U of I Athletic Department and the Tippie School of Business. This summer, we'll begin a collaboration with the College of Medicine. They'll visit families at Forest View and provide wellness classes that focus on nutrition. This is just the beginning of our collaboration efforts with community partners. While these partnerships benefit all of our students, they were specifically designed with our ELL population in mind. And what I think is important is that we acknowledge is partnership is not just a benefit to our MAN students, but also having the opportunity to work with English language learners is of enormous benefit to university students who hope to become teachers themselves one day. It's not an exaggeration to say that the experience these students gain because of the partnership between MAN and the University of Iowa has the potential to improve ELL practices across the entire state. Although the map represents them as different colored blocks that can be moved around in any number of ways, I know you realize these are not interchangeable blocks. These are specific children and families with their own individual strengths and needs. One of the most important needs for our family is stability.
Thanks, Julie.
Something that's often lacking. Thank you for your time and attention.
Emery. Mary Kate Pilcher-Hayek will be next.
Hi, my name is Emery Pullman. I live in 3176 Country Court, Iowa City. I am here to talk about the proposed boundary scenarios. I am a mother of 3 kids. I was looking at the boundary scenario, and thank you for giving all the parents the input that we got to give in towards the boundary scenarios. But one question that I have is, I really thought that we set on a clean feeder system, and I was just wondering what happened to that idea, because I think that community program, when we could all give our input, we had the idea that it would be a clean feeder system, so whatever elementary you go to, that will be depending on the secondary. On the new proposed boundaries, that's not the case, especially not, I'm not sure for how many areas, but not for our area. So we are on the southern side of North Dubuque, so we're on that side of I-80, but we will be going to the new elementary school in Garner, but we will not be going to Liberty High School. So we are within 3 miles, that whole block is within 3 miles of Liberty High School. So we don't understand why we will be sent to city when we are within the 3 miles of Liberty. So that will minimize transportation distance, time, and cost, because there needs no busing for the kids in that area. And it also helps neighborhood schools if you consider geographic boundaries to promote safety, and it's pretty disruptive for the students. It will be a very small amount of students with their peers in that elementary school that will be going to a different high school and secondary schools than the rest of their friends. So.
Thanks, Emery. Mary Kate. Whitney Fraga will be up next.
I'm Mary Kate Pilcher-Hayek. I live at 14 Heather Drive in Iowa City. I'm actually one of board member Liebig's neighbors. I have 3 little kids in the district. School boards are elected to make decisions that benefit the entire district. Obviously, the board cannot make everyone happy all of the time. Under the current FMP, some of us will have to make more compromises than others. I, for example, live next door to Hoover. But if closing Hoover means freeing up millions of dollars that will result in smaller class sizes, more teachers, and more improvements to schools that desperately need them, then I have to agree with a plan that benefits the district, even if it inconveniences my family. Under the approved secondary boundaries plan, Compromises also need to be made so that students in the Iowa City Community School District have the opportunity to attend schools that represent the world we live in. Experiencing economic and social diversity is a gift, not a punishment. The gift multiplies in educational settings. Conversely, if we segregate our schools, education is compromised. Concentrating poverty in certain schools will result in a segregated school district. It is well documented that for a variety of reasons, poverty is a barrier to education. While it's easy to say, we'll just throw more resources at the struggling schools, it is not easy to identify those resources. In fact, evidence of success is scarce, or pay for them, especially considering Iowa's current political climate. Consider the overcrowded classrooms we already have. Schools with high concentrations of poverty will cost the district more money per student, which means fewer resources will be allocated to schools with lower concentrations of poverty, even schools that have overcrowding. To give extra to some, we will have to take from someone else. No school or neighborhood or individual is immune from community responsibility. The best way to knock down barriers to education, from poverty to overcrowded classrooms, is to create a balanced district, one that provides the same education to every student at every school. We must come together as a community to do what's right for the district as a whole. The approved secondary boundaries provide balance, and they strive to give every student the same opportunities at every school. This district cannot afford to disrupt the secondary boundaries or delay the FMP. A board, and I'm almost done, a board that stops progress every time new members are elected is an impotent board, which will lose the community's trust. We ask for progress, not delay. We ask for balance, not segregation. And we hope you see diversity as a gift that breaks through educational barriers. Thank you for your service.
Thanks, Mary Kate. Whitney? Tom Maxwell will be on deck.
I'm Whitney Freyguy. I live at 845 Cypress Court. I'm just going to speak today about supporting the facilities master plan and moving forward with elementary boundaries. Thank you, Board of Directors and Steve Murley, for your service. We appreciate the time that you give to our school district. I'm here today as a Hoover alumni, a current Hoover parent, and a concerned citizen. When my husband and I moved back to Iowa City from Chicago 3 years ago, we did so with the assumption that we were moving to a stronger community that put a high value on education for all. We were surprised and saddened by the decision to close Hoover, a school that we love and expected all 4 of our children to attend. However, we, like many Hoover families, have come to the realization that as long as all the schools are of the highest quality, where they go is less important. This same certainty in quality education must also apply at the secondary schools. Some of you were elected by those that opposed Hoover closing, but many have come to the understanding that closing Hoover as part of the FMP, a thoroughly discussed and constructed plan, will in the long run not only benefit the Hoover students, but all the students in the district. If we can see the bigger picture, I would hope that you could as well. Coming from Chicago, we have seen firsthand the impact that a large disparity in public education can have. Iowa City Community Schools has always and should always have equal education for everyone. And right now we have that opportunity to create the balance, and by moving forward with the facilities master plan. Change is hard, but it's necessary. As a community, we have discussed and debated for years and concluded that the FMP is best for our community, our district, and most importantly, it serves to better the education of every child. We want a district that provides the best possible education to every student, one in which parents are happy to send their child to any of our schools because they are equal. A respected educator mentioned the following goal: every student, any school, and it resonated with me, and I hope it does for you too. Thank you.
Thanks, Whitney. Tom? Erica Lauer, be up next.
Thank you for your time. My name is Tom Maxwell. I live at 6 Melrose Circle, and I want to talk tonight just very briefly about attendance zones. Again, thank you for your time and your service on the board, and to you, Superintendent Murley. I know it's probably often a thankless job, so I wanted to start with that. I know that the attendance zones are not on the work agenda here, but you're going to have the work session, and so I wanted this input ahead of any decisions that you make in the next couple meetings. And I feel a little guilty, a little selfish, because I'm going to talk about just our little corner of the world, which is in Melrose Circle and the little area right around there. And currently, the elementary attendance zone plan, we're currently go to Horn, and I've got a third grader there and a kindergartner there. And in our little spot, which is right across from the hospital, we'd be kind of carved out, and we would go to Lincoln, a great school. But there's if you look, and I'd invite you to come take a little trip around there, it's not quite a neighborhood school if we're going to Lincoln. There's a big chunk of property in between Lincoln and Melrose Circle, the hospital. So if we're walking around or riding our bikes or heading to the playground, we're going to go to Horn. We're not going to go to probably to Lincoln. Again, a great school, great neighborhood. And I think the reason behind carving out that little section was to ease some overcrowding at Horn, which is certainly a problem. But you're not going to get a whole lot of bang for your buck with our probably little handful of people. I can think of my two kids, another two kids in the circle, and I do have the Brownlees vote of confidence. I just got that text. So there's just not that many of us, and again, I feel guilty for bringing it up, but that's kind of my point. We're just this little island over there. It looks like the current high school boundary, I think initially maybe it was going to have, if our kids were going to go to Lincoln, then maybe on to City High. I think the current version has us going to West still. And I want to back up. I missed a point. I put some of these thoughts together kind of quickly this afternoon. But I appreciate your time, Mr. Lynch, in coming to Horn. And I attended that input session. I think we just thought where we were located that we probably wouldn't be impacted because we were so close geographically to Horn, close to Northwest Junior High, and literally even with the Melrose construction, 5 to 6 minutes from West right now. So I think, again, the current version has us going to West. I hope to encourage that, and as you think in your work session immediately after this about that little neck of the woods, maybe you think about me a little bit and take a little bit closer look at it. I would really appreciate it. It's a great district. I thank you again for all your time, but I really wanted to at least have my input before your upcoming meetings.
Thanks, Tom. Erica? Kelly Terrell will be next.
Hi, I'm Erica Lauer, and I live at 700 Whiting Avenue. Dear ladies and gentlemen of the school board, I thank you for this opportunity to add my voice to, I'm speaking on the IPM issue, sorry. So I thank you for this opportunity to add my voice to this important issue. Today we are considering the Integrative Pest Management, or IPM policy, that is the product of countless hours of work of many concerned people over the last year. I encourage you to uphold the form of the policy that describes using the least hazardous control methods as the overall goals of the policy. The addition of the word economical is short-sighted and dangerous. I'm a physician who specializes in integrative medicine, and like IPM, I will utilize conventional medicines in a judicious and careful way as a part of the overall healing puzzle for an individual. I'm well aware that the least hazardous control method in medicine, those methods are usually the hardest ones for people to do, lifestyle and diet and activity changes. But they're also the most economical in the long run and the most effective. We know that many biocides persist in the environment, the larger physical environment and our body environment, much longer, a long time after they've been discontinued. These chemicals inevitably make their way into our drinking water, and into our bodies. In 2012, the USDA tested the drinking water in dozens of communities in the Midwest and found that 94% were contaminated with the farming biocide atrazine at levels linked to birth defects and low birth weight and other endocrine abnormalities. We know that nearly every baby born in the United States has detectable levels, sometimes dangerously high levels, of many biocides and industrial chemicals present in their blood at the time of birth. Our children now come preloaded with a lifetime supply of DDT, a pesticide once thought safe and used ubiquitously until it was banned decades ago when more information became available. We know that low-level exposure to these environmental toxins is often worse than high-level exposure, a phenomenon known in science very well called hormesis. Exposure to biocides is associated with significantly increased risk of numerous negative health outcomes, including leukemia, brain cancer, Parkinson's disease, and infertility, to name a few. If we spray now, we will pay later. We can already see evidence of this across the river in the new Children's Hospital being built. That building should be a stark reminder to all of us that our children are paying the price for our choices. More and more of them are becoming sick, and we, as the adults, the choice makers, bear some of that responsibility. We must stop toxifying our schools and our homes and our cities for the sake of aesthetics and convenience and money. It is beyond my understanding how we can tolerate another hospital being built to treat our children after they become sick, but we can't tolerate longer weeds along a fence line or dandelions in the garden beds. So thank you for your careful consideration in this matter, and I thank you for your service to our children.
Thanks, Erica. Kelly? Next up will be Janet Clark.
Hi, I want to start by thanking you all for your service. My name is Kelly Terrell, and I am the parent of 2 children who will be attending Hoover Elementary when it closes. I initially supported keeping Hoover open and voted for some board candidates who wanted to do the same. However, I do not support keeping Hoover open at the expense of the rest of the school district. Further, my support of Hoover and the support of others like me should not be mistaken for supporting a secondary school attendance plan that lacks socioeconomic balance, for delaying progress on the facilities master plan, or for delaying the drawing of elementary school boundaries. The secondary attendance plan the board developed in May achieves significant socioeconomic balance between the district's 3 high schools. I urge you not to undo that balance. We know from research that concentrating poverty in schools has negative effects on children. Our district's own snapshot data shows that almost 89% of the variability in building reading proficiency can be explained by a building's FRL percentage. We can also see from the examples of other Iowa public schools that when schools lack socioeconomic balance, affluent families migrate away from high FRL schools, leaving behind the families that cannot afford to move. These schools have lower graduation rates and lower rates of participation in extracurricular activities. Over time, migration away from high FRL schools leads to greater and greater socioeconomic segregation and harms the entire community. Having diversity in our classrooms is essential for helping our children function in the world they will experience outside of high school. It provides great learning opportunities to all students from all backgrounds who need broad perspective of the world. It benefits no one to concentrate children in schools that are predominantly wealthy or poor. If you concentrate affluent families at one high school and poor families at another, you will harm the district's children, lose the public trust, undermine your efforts to balance our elementary schools, and reduce the likelihood that the GO bond passes. The community is looking to all of you for leadership. We want you to create a school district where families do not choose where to live based on the FRL status of our schools. We want a district where every child can succeed in any school. Thank you.
Thanks, Kelly. Janet? Next up will be Aaron Gillespie.
Hi, Janet Clark, 5 Penn Circle. I'll try to keep my comments brief because most of you know pretty well how I feel about these things. I am utterly dismayed that there is talk of reconsidering secondary boundaries. I could not be more dismayed. And I know that board members are concerned that parents are upset about the proposed school boundary changes. And I would hope by now that that would be normal and expected, because change is very difficult. This does not mean that these parents' concerns should be disregarded, but you have a job to listen to both the parent concerns, but then make decisions for the benefit of the entire district. I also hear parents saying that they don't understand why the boundaries are changed, and I really can understand why that's the fact, because if people at this table are not willing to see the benefit of desegregated schools, then how can our families possibly understand? And so quite simply, and I'll be brief, the fact that you would consider using taxpayer dollars to create in our district a two-tiered school system, I should say to perpetuate a two-tiered school system, one that works really well for wealthy children and not as well for children who are not wealthy, is appalling and irresponsible, and I believe it erodes the public's trust in you. So I would beg you not to do this and keep the proposed boundaries intact. Thanks for your service.
Thanks, Janet. Aaron?
Aaron Gillespie, 313 Windsor Drive. First, I'd like to discuss the upcoming kindergarten class at Mark Twain Elementary, which is where my children go to school. I have one child getting ready to go to junior high, one child going into second grade, and one child going into kindergarten. Currently, we have 3 kindergarten classes this year. Next year, we have 50 students registered. So we'll lose our 3rd kindergarten teacher in exchange for 2 classes that, as of now, will be 25 students each. And that number is already high for a kindergarten class, but it will surely be higher because every year we have a large number of late registrations. So we're actually talking about kindergarten classes that will be much higher than 25 students. And I'd like a commitment to keeping our 3rd kindergarten teacher. And the sooner this commitment can be made, the better, as we have a new principal coming in, and some stability during this transition is important. And the second thing I'd like to talk about quickly has already been discussed much more eloquently than I could. So I will just add my voice to urge the board to move forward with the secondary boundaries that have already been decided. I just don't think we can continually revisit the decisions of previous boards. To do so not only does it keep any forward momentum from ever happening in this district, but it also risks eroding the confidence of the voters and frustrating the entire community. Not to mention that it makes the board just seem ineffectual. And I keep thinking about what kind of legacy the board will leave. And do you want a legacy of being true leaders or that of indecisive hand-wringers? So the FMP is a thoughtful, carefully designed plan that will positively affect every school in our district and every child that affects those schools. You can already see the result of the FMP happening around the district. And we all know that nothing is perfect and minor tweaking is going to be necessary. But a massive upheaval to the plan is going to have disastrous effects and is seriously going to threaten the GO bond. Thank you.
Thanks, Aaron. That's it for community comment tonight. Next item on the agenda is the business consent agenda. Entertain a motion.
That we approve the business consent agenda.
I think Phil and I reviewed the bills. They looked very good to me. All right, Kim, ready to vote? Oh, sorry. so excited.
Point of procedure.
Thanks, Kim.
I'd like to ask a question, if I may. Sure, go ahead, Tom. Not about the accounts. I just, and this is actually to Craig. Is it necessary to explain anything on the district flexible spending plan beyond what we've heard?
Do you have a specific question in mind?
Not particularly. I did look at all 32 pages, and it's dense and yeah, not the best reading time I've had lately. But no, this is really a public information question I'm asking right now. I mean, is there anything necessary that anybody would need to know or employees would need to know about this before we?
Well, we were challenged with this particular problem to comply with the IRS regulations, and so we've had a very collaborative process with our association, teachers, leadership, and also the union representation of the two groups it impacted specifically. And we've gone through that process, developed a plan, have communicated it both individually through a letter to them, and also held a meeting district-wide last week where people were able to attend and ask questions. And I think it's been very well received. We have very few. We had very few questions. Everyone understood it well, and this is a process that, once set in place, will provide us with the opportunity to both do the compliance and to service our staff members at the same time without any harm being done either direction. So,
thanks. That's what I was asking about.
Okay.
Thanks, Craig. Kim, ready to vote?
Online voting is open.
I don't have it.
How would you like to vote?
Aye.
Thank you. All votes have been cast and the motion carries with all directors voting in favor.
Thanks, Kim. Moving into board work, first item on the agenda is legislative update. Steve?
Just really briefly, the legislative session is coming to a close, which is very timely for us, given previous years. That's positive. A couple things still hanging out there that we're watching closely. One is third grade retention, and the other is testing and assessment. Those are tied up in the appropriations bills. We know both the House and the Senate have taken some fairly strong positions on those, but we also know that the governor has the ability to do selective vetoing as those bills are passed and sent to his desk. He does have 30 days from the time that the legislature sends the bill to his desk to approve it. We do anticipate he will move quicker than that. He usually has in the past. So there's a couple things that we're hanging on to and waiting to see what happens, because there's a funding implication for us in particular. Again, that testing and assessment piece, which is an unfunded mandate at this point in time, and then the implications for third grade literacy, the early literacy intervention program, and the retention process for next year, and our requirements to provide summer school. So that's part of the process that we use as we build our budget next year. So we're eagerly awaiting an end to the appropriations process and a final budget bill to be on the governor's desk.
Steve, I saw that they suspended, or they voted to suspend the Smarter Balanced for a year. I guess that's subject to a veto.
That's correct.
If they do, if it is suspended, what test will we use? Is it going to be the next generation Iowa assessments, or is it going to be the old Iowa assessments?
That hasn't been determined yet. One of the options would be to use the old Iowa assessments. So we will wait to see.
Is that an option still?
It is an option. So we wait to see what happens, and then we wait to see what the DE says about implementation.
Yeah.
Based on experience, it's never too early to start next year's legislative priorities. So I think the second the session's over, perhaps A&E's got this on the agenda, but August always sneaks up on us, and that's kind of when they want them. So,
That's
Yeah, actually,
always a summertime project.
Yes, and I did send Brian some information that came to us. We had a joint meeting of the Chamber of Commerce from Iowa City and the Economic Alliance from Cedar Rapids and area superintendents, and had some conversations about where we might be able to provide a more uniform corridor-wide voice, and perhaps some legislative planks that might be entertained by school boards throughout the corridor. So that gives us a place to start in our conversation.
right on. Any other questions on this topic? Moving on to teaching and learning, academic achievement report. Steve, Amy, and Matt.
All right, so as Amy and Matt get up to get ready here, this is part of our annual reporting process. One of the things that we took to heart as we were listening to board members earlier this year, we provide a lot of reports to you, and I think Chris was helped us in terms of framing that, in putting them in perhaps format that provides more context for them as opposed to spreading them out. So this is actually the last time you'll see this one in isolation. We also look at, you mentioned testing and assessment, as we look to a change in the testing window as mandated by the state from the fall to the spring. We will start to roll this together with other reports that we put together, so hopefully you get more context for it.
One quick question about that. If the Smarter Balanced business is suspended, isn't the requirement that we test in the spring also suspended? And if it is suspended, will we choose to test in the spring anyways?
We will wait to see what kind of rules they put in place to go around that, but that is correct, yes. That's all one big omnibus.
That is a nice segue right into our talk here with you this evening. We have the academic achievement and CSIP report for you tonight. You guys have just been entertaining conversation on Iowa assessments that were given in the fall. We gave them obviously here in the fall of 2015. As we look to next year, those assessments we do anticipate will be administered in the spring. But like Steve said, that conversation's kind of lumped together. The direction we have now is that they would be given in the spring, so we would be adjusting our timeline for that. We're unclear on what assessment will be given, and that was just the conversation you were having a little bit about that. So the data you're going to see this evening is really is a general overview of the fall of 15 results, and we'll dig right into that. And if you have questions at the end, we'd be happy to entertain those too. So one of the first measures we have here is NPR, the National Percentile Rankings, and here grade by grade you see where Iowa City students rank in the areas of reading, math, and then also their composite score. Later on, we're going to show you some visuals that speak to some of those numbers, but that gives you kind of a quick overall snapshot into those. And again, a lot of this is further explained in the report you have in front of you, or that's attached there on board docs. The next chart is a distribution of scores, and I think this is one especially that for our district is something that we need to recognize and be proud of, is the amount of students that we have in the top quarter of this chart, and as that number continues to grow, the longer students are in our system. So if you look at that 75 to 99 national percentile ranking, that's the blue bar you have on your bar graph there, and that's a sizable number for a district. So very proud of that, and I think another area we obviously pay special attention to is that purple number, students in the bottom quartile there. And the good news on that one is as we go through, you see that number get smaller in general from where they start in third grade to where we finish as 11th grade. So good movement along that line as we look at where our students fall in those different quartiles.
So the next few slides, when we think about reviewing student achievement for the purpose of comparing it over time, we can do that. It's possible through looking at the standard scores. So we have slides next for reading, math, and science, although in the report we also include slides on English language arts and social studies. And the orange bar represents how Iowa City students did in 2015. And if you look through those slides, you'll see that our results in 2015 are similar or slightly higher than in previous years from 2011 to 2014. When we look specifically at the reading data here, all of what I've stated so far is true. We continue to see just that little dip in 11th grade that we've talked about before when we've shared previous reports, but otherwise you continue to see our achievement increase over time for all grade levels. And math is also consistent with what I've shared. Again, we're looking at that orange bar to represent how students did in 2015, similar or just slightly better to years past. Same can be said about science. And the one thing I haven't pointed out yet is in each grade for each subject area, we continue to then outperform the nation in the national standard score.
So this one is a slightly different visual, and what you see here on the left would be the national student performance by graduating class, and then on the, it's on my right, is the Iowa City Community School District performance, and that dip that Amy talked about there, we see that a little bit, and that's caused, I think our language arts coordinator was in conversations with, or shared some information with you early in the year, that we've tried to analyze what's going on there. as far as why we have that dip in that sophomore instruction there. The score is still nice. I mean, it's still fairly high, but we'd like that trend line continue up. And as you see these different trend lines in the report, you'll notice that's the only one that kind of goes that direction, where it's a number smaller than the previous year. But you can tell our reading scores outperform the national scores here as well. And then especially in the area of mathematics, if you were to lay those two on top, I think you'd see some nice results there in comparison to Iowa City students, in comparison to that national trend.
Another thing that we're able to do with our Iowa assessments is to make a comparison to student performance to the criteria. So this is a snapshot of one grade, but in the report it details 3rd through 11th grade, and it shows the number of items that are tested and then the percent correct that our students averaged in the district versus the nation, and then the difference. And in all of our grade levels and the areas represented there, you see that, again, we outperform the nation with how our students do on each of those individual tests.
So then our communication mechanism, we share this with administrators, teachers, coordinators, instructional coaches, and parents. All get the results of their students' Iowa assessment data. We also shared this with the Comprehensive School Improvement Committee that is also included in this report. We shared this data with them and then organized some of that feedback that we'll talk here about just a second. But we really try to communicate that in as many ways as we can. We do try to also qualify that with this is one summative assessment. So whenever we make decisions, we always want to use a convergence of data and look at multiple data points for a student that it's a broad brushstroke for us, and it does tell us a nice picture of where our students are at, but we know each student's story is a lot more deep than just this one test score. So we also try to make sure we incorporate that into the conversation whenever we're sharing that data point with these multiple stakeholder groups. I got a little bit ahead of myself there, but you see again principals, teachers, parents, and what they receive to that end. You're kicking off the next part, aren't you, there a little bit? So that's what we had on the academic achievement part. I don't know if you guys had questions on that one before we just move into a quick conversation on the CSIP report you have in there in front of you. Like I said, there's a few more details in the larger report you got, but that was our few things to point out.
Do you mind just going back to like slide 3, I think it was, those percentiles? I mean, I just want to, you said this, but great job. Just great job in terms of, being in the 60s and upper 70s. That's just amazing. And then the next slide, I just want to emphasize too, I mean, that blue bar, which is the top quarter of the nation, I mean, 60% of our high school students are in the top quarter of the nation. So I think that's a great accomplishment, but I also think we need to remind our students and our parents and the community that, if you're an average student at City or West, you're in the top quarter of the nation, okay? And just remember that, okay? So sometimes I think our average students feel like maybe they want to do better, you know what I mean? But they're in the top quarter of the nation, and they're going to be well prepared for what they do next. And again, our strategic plan needs to be focused on growing that blue bar and really getting that purple bar. It's great to see it in single digits as you get to high school, but we'd really like to see that higher, and I know we have a common objective on that. But I really just want to say I think it's great to have 60% of our kids in the top quarter of the nation in high school, and please remind if you're average, you're not average, you're in the top quarter of the nation.
Yep. Good point. Okay. Any other questions?
So you're going to segue in the next agenda item, which
Yep.
is the
We'll jump right into it.
CSIP, the Comprehensive School Improvement Plan.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so Matt and I and Steve have met with the School Improvement Advisory Committee a couple of times this year. Back in the fall, the school board, you all approved the committee, the membership that you see listed on in the board docs right here, and the one that's up on the screen. The purpose of the School Advisory Committee is to make recommendations to the board, and based on the committee members' analysis of needs assessment data, the committee should make recommendations to the board regarding things such as major education needs, student learning goals, long-range goals for reading, mathematics, and science, and harassment or bullying prevention goals, programs, and training. And as I stated, we've met a couple of times. We met December 7th as well as February 29th. And Matt's going to talk a little bit about what we did during those meetings.
So you have the agenda and minutes in there. I'll just click on them here too so they're displayed for the audience. But really, the first meeting we held at the Kirkwood Regional Center, and Steve started with an overview of the strategic plan to the committee so they understood the goals that the district's committed to and that the board's committed to. Then we moved into a discussion on the Kirkwood Regional Center and what opportunities the regional center is providing to our secondary students. And John Y. Was there and able to give us an overview of the different programming options available at the regional center. Director Botchway then provided an equity plan overview and linked that right back to our strategic plan and talked about some of the work that was going on in the area of equity for the district. And then the input gathering activity that we conducted in December included Steve leading the group through a process about legislative priorities. And at different times throughout this year, we've had conversations with the DPO or things that, you know, when that legislative group puts the strain on the fiscal resources for us, we're really talking about things we need to stop doing or that we have already stopped doing. It's not just a continuation a lot of times. So the group offered some good input for that about things we've already lost and things that, you know, we see as critical to our mission, and it helped us really, I think, in a effort to advocate to the legislature when we had those opportunities this year. So we were able to do that, and then we wrapped up that meeting. The February meeting, we shared some of the same data that we just showed to you guys about the Iowa assessment data and walked them through some of that, again with a nice link back to the strategic plan, where they were able to give some feedback then at the end of that meeting that you have there in front of you on those strategic plan goals about things that the committee would recommend to the board for consideration as part of their function as the Comprehensive School Improvement Committee. Amy spent some time with the early literacy implementation legislation and walked them through the requirements for that and some of the questions we still had, but also the tremendous amount of work that's happened at the district level and at the building level and at the classroom level to include all of those pieces and some of the good work going on because of that. We had a brief conversation about neighborhood input in elementary attendance zones. And then, like I said, we wrapped up with that input gathering activity centered around those strategic plan goals. So I'll let Amy kind of start that with just a couple highlights on some feedback on those goals.
Yeah, so what we provided to the committee members was simply a sheet that had our strategic goals on them and had them just think about areas of strength or areas that we might think about as opportunities. So just to highlight a few of each, when thinking about Goal 1, which is our focus on proficiency in reading, a couple of things that were noted: that our district's overall scores are very good, that they like the focus on raising the percent of students proficient, plus the additional language in there around closing the achievement gap in the subgroups. Areas of opportunity around the reading goal would be to explore possible literacy programs to help students before they reach 11th grade, as well as early literacy can start as young as 3 years old. I would say it could start even earlier, from the time that we're born. This particular person said maybe create a summer program for children who will enter kindergarten and focus on literacy activities.
As far as the math goal, in relation to some of that feedback was similar. They liked the attention to not only the growth, but also the effort in response to closing the achievement gap. In that sense, they also talked about the steady scores, and there was some conversation surrounding those scores staying steady as our district has expanded in size, and also some students come to us oftentimes with more challenges, and keeping those scores steady in itself is something as far as an achievement. Areas of opportunity, though, would be to continue to serve those barriers for students, whether it's social, emotional, or some of the other needs that students present with, and how is the district critically looking at those things to continue needs there. Again, ELL was mentioned a couple different times as an area of opportunity when we look at that goal area in math.
And then around our third goal, which is to improve the educational experiences for all children through culturally inclusive and responsive school environments and classroom instruction.
A couple areas noted as strength, that it's a great area of focus, a necessary focus area. We have a more diverse school population, which is also an area of strength. Some areas to think about for areas of opportunity. Please work to continue increasing diversity of staff at all buildings. I know we're working hard at that, but that's something that continues to need to be on our radar. And then increase diversity of students in upper level classes, which I think is particularly a good item to note.
So that's the summation of the Comprehensive School Improvement Committee's work for you there. One thing I would just say about some of our CSIP and our strategic plan goals this year, and we come back to you in the fall with some information on teacher quality and some of the work that does, but I would say from the strategic plan to some of our to the building CSIPs that have been written, it's just been interesting to see the plans submitted by teachers really directed at that good work this year. That I feel like when we've had plans for professional development submitted by the buildings and those leadership teams, it's really focused on addressing those goals. And so we're seeing some nice alignment in how that work continues. So now we want to see the outcome results of that, but at the same time we know on the implementation end and some of the work that teacher teams are taking on, it's aligned to these goals.
And I think new this year to the building school improvement plans was the addition of the equity goal, which has been a nice addition.
Can I just jump in? I just wanted to notice one thing in the areas of opportunity for goal number 1, where it says incentivize comprehension more to balance out hyper-focus on reading pace. And all I wanted to say is that I'm hearing that from a lot of people, and I'm sure it's because of this FAST test. And we did talk about a little bit during our committee meeting about why the district settled on that as the assessment to use. But just to emphasize, I'm hearing from a number of parents that they're worried about the message that's sending to students about what's important, you know. I guess my other more general comment would be about both of these presentations. I just, you know, since we hear so much about reading scores and math scores, it does concern me a little bit because there are other, and we all know, I mean, there's more to school in reading and math, and there's more to learning in reading math, and sometimes you can improve those scores by sacrificing other things that we also care about. And it doesn't seem like we really measure that, and so it's hard to know whether that's what's happening or not. Whether those things are other subject matter areas or just sort of school atmosphere, for lack of a better term. So I just feel like someone ought to at least say that every time we're talking about reading and math scores. Thanks.
So first, before I forget, I want to, on behalf of the board, thank the School Improvement Plan Advisory Committee. I know people put time and effort into it, and I just want to thank the community members and everybody who participated in that. So it's a great team, and it looks like a great outcome here. I was just going to say the same thing. I think Matt and Amy, perhaps you both said this, but I think tonight shows us the power of focus in terms of having a strategic district goals and plan. And it just allows you to have a more specific plan to take to a committee like this and then get more specific feedback. And that's what we're looking for, to make it better and better, right? And Kingsley's done it many times with the equity plan. And the more, you know, focused we are and the better plan we put out there, the better feedback we get as well, right? And I just think we're starting to see the power of that focus. And we're going to see it whether it's achievement or the equity plan or the integrated pest management. I mean, all that stuff's on the strategic plan, and we're getting it done. So again, I just want to emphasize, I think it will probably take time to see the true outcome, but I think we're seeing the power in that already just in the focus.
Thanks.
Further questions? Thank you, Matt. Thank you, Amy. Next item on the agenda is the equity report. I think Kingsley, you're going to kick us off.
Good evening, Board of Directors. So kind of in accordance with what Matt and Amy just said, really this focuses on the strategic goal number 3, which, just to state it out for the community, was annually improve the educational experiences for all children through culturally inclusive and responsive school environments and classroom instruction as measured by various student assessments, including the biennial youth survey, with a focus on equitable outcomes for students in protected classes. So before you is a really nice and well-done report by the University of Iowa Public Policy Center. And I really have to just do a quick shout out to Dr. Sarah Brook, Director, who is going to come before you and kind of speak of some of the details or the key findings within the report, and then her awesome research team, which I'll have her kind of go through and thank as well. But this was kind of born from your work at the board level as far as working on the strategic goals, and actually putting me in charge of figuring out how those things will be actualized. Now, obviously, in the actual strategic plan goal, it talks about the fact that we could possibly use a measurable being the biennial youth survey. But again, this particular student climate survey really wanted to dive in and look at race and kind of the social and emotional well-being of all of our students. And then, from that data, disaggregate the data and find out how each of our groups from racial and ethnic standpoint are doing in our schools, which again is going to get to the point as we're looking at the academic achievement, but also looking at the social emotional well-being of our students. It's just very important for the overall educational environment. So again, with the partnership with the UI Public Policy Center, they were able to get a grant for $10,000 in order to conduct this survey, which is really helpful because the survey wouldn't have been able to happen without it. And then again, it was just really important to do this particular survey based on the fact that we needed a place to start. So we needed to do a needs assessment from the standpoint as, in accordance with strategic goal 3. And then from that, we're going to be hopefully, and the recommendation from the committee or the group is also to take this needs assessment, look at key areas of focus, dive into those areas, whether or not we look at the intersectionality between different groups, or we look at just maybe the different kind of objectives that you have in front of you from the executive summary portion. And then convene a committee of stakeholders. That's board representation, admin, teachers, parents, students, and community members to really assess what we can do from an action plan standpoint to, increase, one, our scores from that assessment standpoint, but also just the overall educational experience of all our students. And so, without further ado, I'll ask Dr. Buck to come up. And then if any other community members are interested in looking at the executive summary, it's actually out there on the table, and so there's some things available for you to look there as well.
Thanks. Well, thank you very much for the opportunity to speak with you today very briefly. I won't go over the introduction because Kingsley did a much better job than I would have done. So I'm just going to dive into what the survey looked like and what the report in front of you looks like, and then dive into some of the very tip of the iceberg key findings. I only have a few minutes, so I can really only tell you very small amounts. I'm just going to give you a flavor of what kinds of wealth of information exists in this survey and the data that we have now. So first of all, the survey was administered to all the 6th, 8th, and 11th graders in the district. We asked them basic demographic information about themselves, their gender, their race, ethnicity, and also their socioeconomic status by asking about their highest level of parental income. The surveys were anonymous, so we don't know how to identify any of the students, and we don't report any data that is on subgroups that are less than 10 people in a school, so no need to be concerned about that. The survey has about 9 different areas, and these are the substantive areas in the report. They're listed here: relationships with teachers and mentors, support resources and information, negative experiences of school, feelings of social belonging and value, motivations to attend school, perceptions of discipline, classroom inclusivity, and also the salience of race and gender for social identity and relationships. These 9 areas were based on both a survey of the academic research literature that shows what are the kinds of factors that are important in terms of students' experiences that affect their achievement in schools, not just disparities in achievement, but overall achievement for all students, and also in alignment with the equity goals that the district has already laid out. The report goes through each of these 9 areas, and it breaks it down by, first it looks at the overall district average for all students, 6th, 8th, and 11th graders. Then it looks at differences by grade. Then it breaks it down by race, gender, and socioeconomic status. Within those, we can look at subgroups within that, but that's how the report is structured for this time, and that's kind of what I'll show you a little bit of today. So I'm going to dive into a couple of the key findings. The first one is on negative experiences of school. So these in front of you are the survey items that assessed negative experiences of school. So each of these questions was asked on the survey. You know, how often have people at your school criticized the way you speak, acted as if they think you're not smart, acted as if they're afraid of you, acted as if you're dishonest, think that they're better than you? How often have you been treated unfairly at your school? Have you heard hurtful comments about race from students? Or how often have you heard hurtful comments about race from teachers? So these are all the survey items that were asked of students about that we have classified as negative experiences in school. The first figure that I'm showing you is just an overall count of the number of experiences, of these experiences that students report. So the circled number is 4.4, so that means that overall in the district, students are reporting that they've had about 4.5 of these 8 experiences. You can look at the subgroup differences. I'm highlighting here the racial differences. So this is the Black, white, Latino, Asian, other, and multiracial. What you can see here is that the multiracial and Black students have by far the largest number of these negative experiences. You can also see the differences by gender and socioeconomic status there. So that's the socioeconomic gap. So you can see that low income or low SES students have on average 5 of these negative experiences. So that's kind of an aggregate. So you might be wondering, well, what's the most prevalent negative experiences for all students in the district to have? And here I've circled for you the most prevalent one that 82% of students say they have ever experienced in the school is that students or somebody thinks that they're better than them, okay? So each of these percentages are the percents of people ever having the experience. Now I would highlight for you 2 other ones that were alarmingly high, at least to me, which is what percentage of the students overall have heard hurtful comments about race, either from students or teachers. So having heard these from students is fully 66% of the sample, says that's ever happened. And also 1/4 of the students in the district report ever hearing these comments from teachers. If you want to look at this a little bit more, because I thought this was very interesting and sort of disturbing, you can look, that's the overall, the first column on the left is the overall, the ones I just showed you in the last one, and now I've just added grades. So does this get worse as students get older in your district? So you can see that in fact they do, that only 13% of 6th graders say that they've heard hurtful comments from teachers about race, but you see that that increases dramatically by the time they're in 11th grade. Fully 36% of the sample is saying that they've heard these hurtful comments about race from teachers in the district, and fully 80% of 11th graders is saying they've heard them from other students. So that was a slice of what negative experiences in school looks like. I'm going to switch to another area of the report. These are relationships with teachers. This is just one of the aggregate items that we have about relationships with teachers. And this is what we call personal concern for teachers or of teachers. And it's really a combination of 2 items. The first one is most of my teachers really listen to what I have to say. And most of my teachers seem not to understand where I'm coming from, which we reverse coded so that it's most of my teachers understand where I'm coming from, so that they're both positive and going in the same direction. All right, so first of all, what I'm showing you here is overall. So these items were asked on a scale of strongly disagree, disagree, agree, and strongly agree. So what I'm highlighting here, the 2 kinds of blue are both agree and strongly agree. So if you add those up, you get 74% of students in the district saying that they agree or strongly agree that their teachers are showing personal concern for them. Then you can look at some of the racial differences. So here you can see that whites and Asian students have the highest level of reporting that they agree that teachers show personal concern for them, whereas blacks are the lowest, with only 63% of the students in the district saying that they think that their teachers understand where they're coming from and listen to what they have to say. We can disaggregate that aggregate measure back out into its 2 pieces. So you can look at both pieces. The first one is the teachers listen to what you have to say, and the second is the teachers understand where you're coming from. And you can see the differences by race. I just put 3 of the groups up here for you so you can compare them. You can see that 84% of whites think that their teachers listen to what they have to say versus only 72% for blacks. But I think the one that's the most alarming is that only 56% of black students say that most of their teachers understand where they're coming from. So that was a slice of teacher relationships. Now I'm going to show you a little bit about rates of mentorship and how that differs across subgroups. So positive, overall, 89% of students in the district say that they have a mentor, so a person that they feel close to in the school, an adult person that they feel close to in the school. Sixth graders are much less likely than 8th and 11th graders to say they have a mentor in the school. Again, here is the racial differences. So 87% of black, 90% of white, 88% of Latino students say that they have a mentor in the school. One thing that we can do is we asked about what is the role that your mentor plays in the school. Is it a teacher or an other adult? And what I'm showing you here is the percentage of people that say of that mentor that you have, is it a teacher? And so I'm circling here the racial differences, and what I'd like to draw your attention to is the difference between black and white and Asian students in the proportion of students that say that their mentor is a teacher. So fully 82 and 86% of white and Asian students say that their mentor is a teacher in their school, whereas only 62% of black students say that that is true. Okay, so last one I'm going to go over with you today, I'm happy to answer more in question and answer, tell you more about them, is what we call disciplinary equity. So this is all about perceptions of discipline in the school. We look at both equity, strictness, and consistency. This is the equity portion. So this is a composite of 4 items. The first one is punishment for breaking rules is the same no matter who you are. The second is school rules are fair. The third is I know I would receive the same punishment for breaking a school rule. And the last one is all students receive positive rewards for doing a good job. So if we look overall again, one thing to note here is a relatively low overall perception that discipline is equitable in the district. Only 61% of students in the district are saying that discipline is equitable. Here, what I'm showing you is that this declines as students get older in the district. So it's highest, 66% of 6th graders say that discipline is equitable, whereas by the time you get to 11th grade, only 55% of students are saying it's equitable.
Can I just ask a quick question?
Yeah.
So the disciplinary equity, there's 4 questions that they get asked.
That's right.
How does that turn into one number?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So I'll show you. So what we do is each of these is on an agree to disagree scale, right? So each one has 4 items that the student could respond, 4 responses that the student can give, right? And so what these graphs are showing you, so let's pretend this was only one item, right? You would get, these are the 4, oopsies. It's a smart screen. Go back. Go back. Ah, okay, never mind, I won't touch it. Okay, so this is the strongly agree, disagree, strongly disagree. So what we do is we calculate that for each of the measures that makes up the composite and then give you the average across them. That's why in the previous one I could show you that that was the overall, and then I could unpack it again and show you the average percent for each of the items.
And do we have that data
It's in
unpacked
the report,
there?
so
Okay.
all the individual items and all of the composites, even the ones I'm not showing you, are in the report. And these little numbers are each of the ones that are shown on the graph. So, you know, like 12% strongly disagree, that's the dark gray. 28% disagree, that's this part. I'm just highlighting some of the numbers so you can see it on the bar graph.
Thanks.
Okay, so, yes, summary. All right, so sort of just a general summary of what we find in the report overall is that the district is doing a number of very positive things, but we also have highlighted a number of areas that sort of are in need of improvement or maybe some attention. The survey findings are based on this analysis of the survey data of the students' responses about their own experiences, and we would highlight that this is a very important thing to look at, and many of the things that we find I would label as potentially troubling from the perspective of caring about the equity and inclusion of all students, and also the overall, many of the overall numbers are consistently low, which is also troubling if you care about the achievement of most students or all students. So we welcome the opportunity to continue this research partnership that we have with the district. This really is the tip of the iceberg. It's very much a preliminary first step. These are preliminary findings from the report. There is a lot more that we could do. We could do stuff by school. We could break it down by subgroups. We can look at trends. There's a lot of things that we could do. So this really is just something that we would say the wealth of the data is there, and we're happy to work with people to find out more interesting things. The other thing that we can provide to the district in terms of continuing our partnership is we can work as a liaison with interested parties to both pull from the academic research literature to tell you what's worked in similar districts that are addressing similar issues, and also to continue to do any other kind of primary data collection that would be useful to the district. Yes. With that, I'll take questions. Comments, feedback?
I just had a quick question about how you measured for socioeconomic status.
Yeah, that's a good question. So we asked the students of their highest level of parental education. So this is the most common way to ask students themselves about their socioeconomic status. It's not really recommended practice to ask students about their income, nor would it be acceptable for IRB purposes.
Okay.
And they are pretty good reporters of their parents' education.
I'd just like to thank you for all your hard work and what you put in here. And many times I'm very thankful that our district is where it is. I don't think there wouldn't be a district in the state that wouldn't like to have the opportunity to have a Big Ten institution within 5 minutes of their facilities to utilize. And I think this is another great example. And I thought the presentation by the principal at Mann and how they utilize the University of Iowa, I think this is just something that we have to look at every opportunity to collaborate. And thank you very much for all the work that you put into this.
Thank you.
Excellent. Is that right, Jackson? I'm just looking in the report. There's a portion in here on page 28 that's talking about that nearly half of all lower socioeconomic status students report receiving career information versus 37 and 35% of medium and high income status students. Can you explain to me a little bit more about that? Because to me that kind of throws me off a little bit. It seems as though our lower socioeconomic students are kind of being taught to look at career versus looking at college.
Yeah, so this is a survey item. It's taken from a survey item that's asked only of 8th and 11th graders, and the survey item itself is, have you talked with a counselor, teacher, or other adult to get information about jobs or careers? And what we're finding is that for that measure, and also a couple of the other ones about support and information, that actually the most marginalized students, such as the low SES students, are the most likely to report having utilized this resource. So I think on the way to interpret this, you could go two different ways. On the one hand, you could say that this is good that the most marginalized students or low status students are seeking out or are receiving this kind of counseling or information. On the other hand, you could also interpret this as maybe these students are being tracked into talking to their counselor about jobs and careers as opposed to academic, like furthering their academics and going to college. So you might think that students that are college bound would not be going in to talk to their counselor about jobs or career opportunities, that would be something that they would talk to their college counselor about. So I think that you could read something like that either way.
Sarah, yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead.
So I was just going to say, start with thanks to you and your team for the work, and then also the $10,000 grant. That's always.
Don't thank me. I got the grant to pay the students to do the project.
Oh, perfect. Oh, it's all
It's a training
good.
opportunity for everybody all around.
Exactly, and I agree with Director Hemingway. We've talked about increasing our collaboration with Iowa, so it's great to see that happen. I just wanted to put a few linkages in terms of the board work, because I think this is, not to toot our own horn, but I do think this is a good example of leading by one policy. So I saw you had a very good link into the equity statement, which we approved last year, right? And then an equity statement potentially leads to strategic goals. So we referenced many times strategic goal number 3, equitable learning opportunities, which leads to an equity plan, which Kingsley asked us to approve, and we did. And then here we are, again, this is the advantage of focus and getting after it and just being real about our opportunities and then getting into it. And, I can't wait to see what's next. I'll leave that question for the end for Kingsley. Do you need any help on what's next? But there's no doubt there's some opportunities here. But, to improve, we need to be fine with the data, whether it's good, bad, or ugly, right? And to be honest, it's better to see that you've clearly got some opportunities, because then we can go work on them, right? If it came back all good, we'd be going, what the heck are we going to work on, or, what's going on? So just thank you for the work. I'm glad to see that we should be happy to see, and Sarah mentioned this in community comment too, we should be happy to see the data that says, here's the opportunity area, and let's figure out the plan, and let's get after it. So that's what we're looking for, but thank you.
Yeah, I absolutely appreciate you all doing this, and I think it's a nice overlay over the student achievement information that we just got, where we see some of those gaps are kind of reflected here in student experiences. And I think that is an area where we can actually do some work as a board about how do we change that climate, because I think if it's a part of that, I can't remember which portion of the CSIP it was that it was talking about social emotional, and if we're seeing that students, 80% of black students are saying that they've heard negative things about race, then, you know, if you don't feel like you're comfortable in that climate or in that environment, you're probably not going to be doing your best work. So I think that there's a nice overlay there that where we can actually get some work and really pay attention to that and start working on that. I think I really appreciate the comment about potentially getting like some type of board-led committee or something together to specifically work on this, because this is a part of our board goals as well as the district's goals. So it makes sense that we would get something like that going to start working on this, because obviously this is impacting our students daily. Well, I mean, we don't know the frequency, but it's enough that we should be like, okay, what can we be doing soon to start addressing this, because it is impacting. Maybe this is also impacting where we have that dip in 11th grade as well. So I don't know. I'm just saying, I think there's some overlap.
Kingsley, I'm just curious. So, that recommendation at the end about forming a committee, stakeholders, is that something you imagine sort of coming back to us with at some point, or?
Yeah, basically what we first want to do is, take, this is kind of a aggregate. So, there's some disaggregation as far as, from socioeconomic status and racial and ethnicity, but we really want to delve into each of the different areas and figure out where we can apply our best resources and develop some type of action plan around. I think at that point, then we would probably go out to seek some board guidance, some community stakeholder guidance as far as how to best implement those action steps to make sure that we're doing what we can do to progress through this particular plan. Obviously, all of these are important, but there are some that are more concerning than others that we can address right away with some different things. I think we've talked about a little bit mentorship. That gap between mentors was concerning, and there's different ways that you can view that as well. And so kind of talking about that, and actually some of the things that we're already doing in some schools, whether or not we can take that model and kind of use it across the district is another way of doing that as well.
So you'll let us know what you need.
Yep.
All right, great. Well, thank you. Outstanding. That may have been the best teaching and learning section ever. I don't know, that was pretty good. Good stuff.
Well, I want to make sure I give credit to my other colleagues as far as all the stuff that they do as well.
All right, next item on the agenda, moving and operational work, is the integrated pest management policy. I think, Steve, you're going to kick us off, and I think Jeff and Cliff co-led the committee. I know Jeff's here tonight. And then Brian and Phil were on the team, so Steve, take it away.
Yeah, with Phil and Brian on the team and with Jeff and Cliff here, I don't want to take too much time, just to let you know that they've been obviously working hard on this. We heard at community comment that we've had quite a bit of involvement from various stakeholders in the community. And one of the things I know that was brought forward, I just wanted to make sure that I mentioned this to you because he's with us here today. Dave McKenzie is sitting to Cliff's left, your right. And one of the things that came out of our work was a determination that we need someone to head these efforts up inside the district. And so one of the roles that Dave will be taking over is that integrated pest management coordinator role. And so he's been sitting alongside the group as he learns more and more about the processes and the next steps as we work together as a district to move forward. So with that, I know you've got a draft of a policy in front of you, and you've got 4 folks that were instrumental in putting that together. So I'm going to turn the floor over to the 4 of them.
Well, the work at the task force has been enjoyable. We've been at it for a little over 6 months or so, maybe 7 months. And really this started with a district-wide ban on chemical spraying initiated in the fall. And the group is put together of a wide variety of backgrounds and areas of expertise and opinions. It's been, we've had some changes in leadership throughout that time, And I think that one of the terms that we use up here is we frequently go through a period of divergence before we get to convergence. And as folks up here, through the community comment portion may have learned, we've converged significantly towards a direction where we'd like the district to go with the policy. There's some majority and minority opinions, of which I believe everybody has the minority response here at your seats at the board table. There's a majority opinion, I believe, expressed or the memo response in here. One thing I was going to ask is if it's possible, since we've had 3 different changes in leadership, if it's possible that we could get just a list of the task force members put into board docs, if that's, I know other committees or task forces typically have that, because I think there's a great list of people that have been involved in it. Director Hemingway, do you want to jump in on some of the work that we've been doing for the last 6 months?
Well, yeah, it's had a tremendous amount of community participation, and really Jeffrey Lauer has put in a tremendous amount of work, as well as others have. Also, we have to recognize the work of Mark Schnorr from Iowa State and Ken Yar from UNI.
Yep.
We've had great mentors and help with this, and this is something that the ban was the first vote that we took as a board, new board,
September.
For the 5 of us. And it was a big enough issue with the community that there was a forum to it that we all went to, and we answered questionnaires, and we answered verbally. And, the community kind of looks at us to do what we said as private citizens, as we are as elected officials. The community's very strong about this, and I would urge that the vote that we had on the language of economy, one member came late, another member of the administration left, so it essentially was a draw. But I'm always kind of coming back to this thing it's on the board, it's on the district website, and it's a flow chart of the district. And at the very top, the number 1 people are the community stakeholders, then the board, we're number 2, then the superintendent is number 3, and then it goes on down. And I think as a board, sometimes you have to listen to the number 1s. And I'm very supportive of striking the word economical out of there, and continuing our chem-free ban. It's something that the city is working on, the county is working on. I spoke with 4 of the 5 county supervisors, and they were in support of this language that was presented at the meeting. I don't know that it's been presented in the board docs, but on a synthetic chemical ban for the district, with the exception of competitive athletic fields, with the goal of reaching 100% compliance within 6 years.
Now, to be clear, we have not discussed that in the
Right,
committee.
no, I understand.
Okay.
It got introduced. But, right now we are a chemical-free ban that way. But 4 of the 5 county supervisors are in support of it. 2 supervised candidates are in support of it. The city council, like I say, is working on something along those lines. At the joint meeting that we had on Monday, the city announced that they had chemical-free ban for the last year, and so our students that use the Mercer Park fields are already using competitive fields that don't have that. So it's something that's strongly supported by our community, and I know Physical Plant Director Van Hemert, when speaking at Hills, talked about the importance of the Go Bond and everything like that, that I think that this is an issue that is important to show to the public that we get we're in support of, and keep that very passionate part of our community on board as we go forward in operating our schools.
So some of the things that I'd like to touch upon with the work that we've done, that the group has done, is first, when everybody came to the table, studying what is integrated pest management, what does that mean? And really, Mark Schauer's first presentation was really, I think, very informative, very eye-opening. And there's in board docs, there's a PowerPoint of his that he just gave to the committee last Monday when we met. And things like just proper education and documentation and identification of pests, subdividing into internal, external, looking at maybe facility issues that may contribute to internal pests in our learning spaces and kitchen prep areas, so on and so forth. And there's a saying I always use, proper prior planning prevents poor performance, and a lot of it is about proper prior planning and prevention. So if I can add that P in there, proper prior planning and prevention, and just really going around. And Mark's kind of interesting because he'll get down on his hands and knees, or he'll look at the little cracks and crevices and grease traps and so on and so forth to find little areas that normally when you walk around at 5 foot something you don't notice. Really comprehensive, and I think some of the staff might have been surprised by the thoroughness of his investigative abilities. He's thinking like a roach, if you will. But things like establishing thresholds for treatment, things like discussing and really understanding, besides prevention, non-toxic means of elimination of pests, whether it's, and by pests we mean, it could be rodents, it could be insects, it could be weeds, it could be. We've had lots of discussion about this. But what you see here for our policy is some very carefully picked wording in order to try and start to, once we understood what we were looking for, to try and build some consensus from the group. And I think consensus is a good word to focus on, because we'd like to try and reach consensus. And as you're probably understanding or hearing tonight, is that there's not 100% consensus about a couple words in one of the paragraphs there. And that's up for discussion by the board in a moment. But I think that we need to recognize the amount of work put in to take divergence and start to converge and get to I'd estimate a 98% convergence point, or 90% convergence at this point. But there is still those two words, and I want to be clear that we're not 100% consensus on that. So Jeff and Cliff, Cliff, you've been around for the last 4 months of the committee, and Jeff, you've been around the whole time, and Jeff has really done a great job of stepping up to the co-facilitator task and putting pen to paper. So if you guys want to comment, and make sure Jeff gets the microphone too. There you go.
Want to start first?
Go ahead.
Thank you. Yes, the committee task force has worked very diligently, and I believe has come together to address this. I think you heard from them tonight that there's concern about a couple words, but they would like to see the policy move forward. As we look at that paragraph, that if you take apart that paragraph, really starts looking at what is the crux of a IPM policy. And integrated pest management has been around for years. It's not something that we just last 5 years. But if you look at that economical and least hazardous, that's in tandem. It isn't, we can be one or the other. It has to be both economical and least hazardous control methods. Then it identifies 4 methods that they identify: cultural, physical, biological, or chemical, which says that if you're going to use a physical means, it needs to be least hazardous and most economical. And of course, the one that we've addressed tonight is the issue of, well, chemical might be, or could be, or will be the most economical if you have to use other mechanical means. But I want you to look at those, first of all, in tandem. The other major piece of that is, if you continue in that sentence, it really says it relies on prevention and monitoring to mitigate unacceptable levels. Well, we established what's called action thresholds, and it will vary in different locations. If I see, or if they see a cockroach in the kitchen, that may be the threshold that we need to address it. Now, how do we address it? First, we use the least hazardous, most economical way. You go to that next sentence.
First, we identify the cockroach.
First, identify the cockroach.
Is
Yeah.
it German or American?
Yeah.
Then as it reset. See, we learned something.
You guys are
We
all
sure
trained,
have, more than I ever wanted to know. Then you go to the non-chemical methods will be used as the first means of pest prevention. So right there, it starts addressing the protocol you're going to follow. Then if it isn't, if they're ineffective, based on documented post-procedural evaluations, only then may you use chemical controls. So I don't think taking the word economical out removes the ability to use chemicals to address a pest, but you have to follow the protocol.
So Jeff Lauer, thank you. Cliff and Dave and Ben and everybody else on this task force, both staff and community members, have put in tremendous amount of time and thinking, both at the meetings and outside the meetings, and it's really been a tremendous community effort. I would agree very much so, Brian, that we have moved to convergence in so many areas. There is a learning process that working together, we've realized, I mean, when I say we, some of the community members who I think came in with a sense that staff might not get it, whatever it was. And I think people are realizing we have a staff that is deeply, deeply committed to wanting to move to the least hazardous methods of responding and learning through a whole process. Mark gave 14 points, kind of almost an overwhelming list, from my perspective, of different components that we could improve on to reduce, I think, cockroaches across the district. And none of them include having to use hazardous chemicals. So really an effective move forward by the district, by the staff, in embracing statewide experts and coming national experts in this area. Really great collective. I think that the issue of these two words really is not just about words, though. I think that the discussion at the last task force meeting is what you have heard in the public comment, which is much more than these two words, and that these two words really don't show up in tandem. Maybe they do on this piece of paper, but there's a real fundamental, I believe, a fundamental difference, and you can see it in the memo that I think you have in your packet from Mr. Van Hemert, in which he's very clear about that the policy is about working within the budget provided. And I, we understand that the grounds people have a budget. And this issue, it's the perception of myself and others that this issue is a fundamental issue for you as a board to grapple with in terms of balancing the potential to have more labor allocated to the grounds crew if there is a desire to maintain the current appearance of the grounds, the current level of fence growth at 3 inches or less, the current level of non-dandelion, around the district. Now, it's not about just dandelions, but really this does come down to the grounds, the facilities people and the grounds people recognizing that they don't feel they can meet the goals that they've been given by the board and the district. In my opinion, what I see, that they can't meet that with the budget provided to them, and thus they need that option when they run out of options for least hazardous mitigation to default. to using chemicals. And that's unacceptable. It's unacceptable to me personally. It's unacceptable to many of the community members. And I think it flies in the face of the IPM process. And so if, in fact, this is, there's a deep commitment here to the least hazardous control method being primary, I think that's where you hear the community members, the minority report saying, then strike the word economical here so that there's that sense that the board, as they go through the budgeting process, will ensure that either one, the board's willing to have a change of appearance and not hold the grounds crew and the facilities people to a level they can't meet, or two, find ways to support, in a budget from hell, find ways to support the labor that's needed to make that work without taking away from educational budget, et cetera. It's a hard balance, but that's what I think these words are. They're not just two words. There's a fundamental underpinning of concern that we won't put the budget before the safety.
If I may, one thing that I was going to mention is that you folks on operations, Director Liebig, Lynch, and Hemingway, all looked at the IPM policy, I believe, as it came through operations. And then it came to policy and, am I correct? Operations did look at, yeah.
Yes.
Then it came to policy and governance, and we looked at it, and then it went back to the IPM task force. And one thing that I was going to suggest is that because the economy of the school district, because the budgeting of the school district relies on us, the board of directors, making a decision, and because a wording change or discussion of potential wording change exists in the task force, seeing it after it went through policy and governance, I was going to suggest possibly taking it back to policy and governance before we actually move ahead on a vote of acceptance or not. But I just wanted to throw that out there.
I guess I would not be against that. What worries me about the word, it seems like we're talking about subtext and not text. I mean, the actual language, there's sentences that are directive all through this thing. Non-chemical methods will be used. If non-chemical methods are ineffective, only then may chemical controls be considered. The district will notify, etc. But the sentence we're talking about is just a descriptive sentence. Using economical and least hazardous control methods, IPM relies on pest monitoring and prevention methods. I almost wonder what would happen if you just delete the whole sentence. I mean, it's not going to delete any of the directive words. And so if you want a sentence in there that actually says, I'm not saying you want it, but if somebody wants a sentence that actually says non-chemical methods will be used as the first means only if we can afford it, it's still not in there. And so I think people are putting an awful lot of, on both sides, putting an awful lot of pressure on that word economical in a descriptive sentence that does not seem to affect the actual commands of the policy. I think maybe we could improve that sentence. I mean, if there's something we're trying to get at.
Well, and that's the kind of thing that we're good at.
And I don't understand the and connector, because what if there is no economical and least hazardous control method? It doesn't say where you stand.
Well, and to be fair, what we looked at in P&G has morphed since then.
Yeah, it's morphed, yeah.
I think we saw like version 1.5. This is version like, what, 1.7 or 7.7.0. Wow. It does. It's like making sausage.
So I think when we talked this last summer about commissioning this committee, this is exactly what we're looking for. So I think the committee is 1,000% delivered on what we asked them to do. And we certainly last September, we had to institute a ban to get everybody to the table and have a good faith effort. And I have to say, I'm perfectly satisfied with that the committee's on the same page. We're all talking the same language. I understand between now and the end of time, there's going to be slight differences in opinion, and that's why we have the going committee in place, right, to continue to have this discussion over time. But I'd be in favor of approving it tonight. I'd be in favor of taking out economic, and I'd be in favor of moving on. And here's the reality. The committee will need to monitor over time the results and how's it going and is it meeting our needs, and that's going to include the quality of our grounds and what they look like and what the budget is and all that other good stuff. So
one of the reasons I was suggesting P&G is because I believe we're meeting, I think it's next week. I think
Yeah,
it's
I
March
don't know
3.
that there's anything, agenda particularly. Excuse me, but we can certainly, we can put this on. My question too about language here, not to make this more difficult, but is there another section of inclusionary? I mean, is there a request for a change in language or inclusionary language as a part of the discussion from operations here? I mean, you were holding up a piece of paper, Phil. What's that?
This is a synthetic chemical ban addition, and I'll just read it. It's very brief. The goal of the Iowa City School District is to provide the safest, healthiest environment for all of our students, staff, and community members, recognizing that synthetic chemicals such as glyphosate pose to our students and staff and community. Our goal is to be 100% synthetic chemical free. Recognizing that reaching 100% compliance will take time, the Iowa City School District will make an exception for the use on competition athletic fields where necessary and only after following procedures set forth in the IPM protocol. The goal of 100% compliance for the use on competitive fields should be reached within a 6-year period or earlier. And then at the end, it just says the Iowa City School District bans the use of synthetic chemical pesticides on all common school grounds, playgrounds, fence lines, building perimeters, and borders at all Iowa City schools and Iowa City school grounds with the exception of competitive fields with the restrictions as specified above.
If we try to tweak, well, first of all, we could get involved in a lengthy discussion about the inclusion or not of that statement, okay? It seems to me also that if we're going to mention or we're going to change the use of the word chemical throughout the policy statement, then that ought to be consistent through there. I mean, there's a notification and record keeping paragraph here which talks about upcoming pesticide treatments. Well, I mean, yes, you want that notification in there, but that could lead us to the discussion about what constitutes a pesticide and is that a chemical, and we could, I was going to say we get lost in the weeds, but you know what? We just know that one anyway, don't we? So, if it's in the larger interest of the effectiveness of the policy to include that statement, then we can take it back to P&G and we will tweak it and we will be done.
I would like to be clear that that statement was not discussed at all with the task force. That statement was introduced at the 11th hour and handed out on a piece of paper.
It was introduced because we had an Iowa State representative. We were running low in the meeting time, and we wanted to make sure that we had Mark Snorr's presentation.
With all due respect, we met for 6 months, and the meeting a week ago is not the time to pull out the piece of paper.
But can I suggest this? How about we do all the above? How about we approve this tonight minus economic in the end?
Okay.
How about, if you guys want to take it back to policy and governance and make it better, go for it. And if we want to come back with the addendum, go for it. If we're going to put the addendum in policy, I think it should have been in the board packet so everybody could have saw it. And I don't personally have an issue with anything you said, but I think if we keep bringing it back and say, here's an addendum, I just think we should approve this because I think you've done good work. I think we should set the direction. And if 4 weeks from now we come back and say, here's the first update, then great. But if there isn't, at least everybody's got marching orders. I mean, we're into the spring. Everybody's got marching orders. We can get our summer plans together for all of Dr. Snorr's opportunities, you know what I mean? We can put it into motion.
So not that there's a motion yet, but were there a motion, it would take out the word economical, but that would be it for the moment.
Economical and. I think it reads okay.
We'll just start using the least hazardous control methods.
Right.
I would second that.
in
You
general.
want to make the motion, Phil, or
Sure,
Brian,
I'll-
since
I'll
you
ma-
guys did? You guys should motion and second
I
this.
will make a motion that we strike the word economical and from the Iowa City School District Integrated Pest Management Policy.
And approve the rest of the policy.
And approve the policy to go back to,
Well, that's two different things.
okay, then we
If you
strike.
wanna
okay.
approve the policy,
Move
that's one
to-
thing, and if you want it to come back for, yeah.
Okay, I move that we strike the words economical and as previously stated,
And approve the rest of the policy.
and approve the rest of the policy.
Second.
Is it, all right, good. Further discussion on that?
I would just say that I am generally not a fan of writing policy or changing policy at the board table.
Are we gonna take that, are we gonna look at this at P&G?
And I sense that's probably the next motion. I'm just saying that as a
I do
point
believe
of,
that's gonna happen.
whether it's this or anything else, I'm generally not a fan of.
Yeah, I get it, yep.
And I generally agree with that. I think striking 2 words is,
It's not exactly recrafting, I get it.
I don't think the intent's changed any.
I think that the end result, should the next motion be that it's going to P&G, I think the end result will address the issue. I'm just saying that in general.
Sounds good.
One of those
So,
procedural things.
Further comments? The only other thing I wanted to just state in this whole, one, great job by the committee, it's outstanding, good stuff. I just want to reiterate, I don't think we've said that, the goal, no matter how we do it, is to eliminate and control our pests, right? This is just how we do it. So I don't want anybody to ever think that by passing a policy, we're not saying we're going to control pests that need to be controlled. We're absolutely going to do that. It's just how we do it, right? So sometimes that gets lost in the whole discussion, so. All right. Kim, ready to vote?
Online voting is open. All votes have been cast and the motion carries with Directors Liebig, Deloach, Yates, Hemingway, Rutland, and Lynch voting yea and Director Kirschling voting nay.
Okay, I would make a motion that we send this to
Policy and Governance.
Policy and Governance. And if we could also have them look at this addendum.
Is there a second?
Second.
Further discussion?
I have a quick question. So has the actual IPM task force actually looked at this document and made?
We, like I say, it was introduced at the last meeting. We had Mark Schnorr here, and it didn't have a chance to get fully discussed, but many people, they got a copy of it, they've had a chance to look at it and review it, and it's essentially what we did as our first vote as board members.
So I guess my question is that we kind of entrusted the task force to look at all of it because they were the experts. And I don't know how comfortable I feel with just kind of put it in policy and governance to look at this when there's very specific language in there that I think that task force has more experts on it that could specifically talk about this. And I don't know if that task force is it gone? Is it still here?
Oh, we're still working.
Okay, so I think it would be really great to send that back to that task force. So if they need to tweak it, then when it comes to us, it's pretty clean. And if it needs to go to policy and governance, that makes sense to me, versus having folks who haven't been a part of that process necessarily make that change. I think going to the task force is a good place for it to be. I'm all for it going to the policy and governance for what we have now, and that the task force specifically looks at that.
Yep.
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing. I think it's an and, right? So.
Yeah.
That means, though, that maybe it wouldn't be on our next P&G agenda.
Oh, I think you guys can handle it whenever you're up, as long as it goes back through the committee. Good?
So the specific motion
Is to send it to P&G.
with the addendum.
Yes.
Okay.
And then go back through the committee and.
Wait, what? Can you say it again? So are you saying?
I think we had a second on it.
It would go to Policy and Governance Committee, and then it would also go to the IPM Committee.
The addendum, also, Well, the motion that I heard was that this addendum was also going to policy and governance. Is that changed now?
No?
So this vote will be that policy and governance will also be looking at the addendum as well as this.
Yeah. Right.
Which I think is the opposite of what I just said. So, okay.
You want to restate the motion, Kim?
I have recommend to send integrated pest management policy to Policy and Governance Committee, including the addendum for review.
I would urge the addendum to go to the task force before it comes to policy and governance. I would be fully supportive of a motion that was just to go for this IPM policy here that was in our board packet to go to policy and governance, and then wait for a recommendation from the task force regarding any addendum.
Would it be a friendly amendment to just say, let's send this to the task force, the addendum to the task force, and then have everything come back? That plus what we just did to the policy and governance after they've processed it, the addendum?
We think we could address this at the May 16th meeting, the task force, and then bring recommendations to the
Willingness to withdraw the motion?
And then,
No, I think it was already moved and seconded, and we had a discussion. I'd say vote on it, and if it fails, it fails.
And it may just be a scheduling issue, because if it's referred to policy and governance can determine what date to schedule it. So if it's referred and passed, then it's up to policy and governance to schedule it, and if they schedule it after the task force goes through it, then that, it doesn't have to come back here again. It can go right from the task force to policy and governance and then back to the board.
Fine with me.
We're kind of agreeing. I mean,
Yes.
as a
Right.
policy
Chair.
and governance, I'd prefer to have the task force look at it first. So if we're going to schedule it that way, whether it has to be part of the motion or not, I don't know.
Can I ask for a point of clarification? Because I have to manage this. So as this policy has been passed by this board just a few minutes ago, so beginning tomorrow, this is our guideline, and the previous ban on use of chemicals has been lifted,
well,
and this is put in its place.
How about we come back to that in 1 minute?
Well, we have to carry it out,
Yeah.
okay?
Any disagreement with that?
wait, say that again, Dwayne?
Well, last fall, you passed a ban on the use of chemicals, which we've been living with a few exceptions on roach control, which we've had exceptions that have been approved. But if I understand this, your action tonight, it's my department, I have to carry it out, and we're willing to do that. And we're quite in full agreement with this IPM plan to begin with. But beginning tomorrow, this is our guideline. It's not the ban on the use of chemicals. It's this policy that you just passed. I want to make sure that everybody understands that.
That's correct, because I think we've updated the policy, and that was a motion. Now, again, you need to follow the,
I fully understand that.
Yeah.
We're willing to do that, but I just want to make sure that that's our guideline beginning tomorrow.
I think it's a great clarification. I think the answer is yes. Any disagreement with that? This is the policy that would be providing guidance to our operations going forward.
And again, we work with this committee. We're in favor of this. We think it's a good plan. We're all for it, but we need to know that this is what we're doing.
Okay, there's a motion on the table, I think with understanding that from a schedule point of view, we'd send it to the IPM committee and then B&G. Further comments? Kim, ready to vote?
Online voting is open. All votes have been cast, and the motion carries with Directors Liebig, Deloach, Yates, Hemingway, Rotland, and Lynch voting yea, and Kirschling voting nay.
All right, any further discussion? Dwayne, Steve, you need anything else? Cliff? All right, well, thanks again to the committee. Jeff, thank you for coming again tonight, but and hopefully that's a positive resolution. We all move forward together, so. All right, thank you. Next item on the agenda is Appendix 9. Dwayne?
Thank you. We have 5 projects with 8 items for approval this evening. The first one is the 10-plex, the transitional schoolhouse, which currently resides at Farwell Central. We're going to plan to move that to Lucas this summer. We took 3 bids a week or so ago, and they ranged from $425,000 to $483,000, which is in line with previous moves. The move to Corville Central was in the $365,000, $370,000 range when we got done. The difference here is that the Lucas site is a much more difficult site than Corville Central, and there's a lot more foundational work to do. We are, however, recommending the second low bid, which is city construction at $446,750 versus the low bid of $425,000 for Platinum Pro Construction. In the specifications, it required, of course, a 5% bid bond and then a performance bond and payment bond. We were not assured by the contractor that they would be able to secure that bond. They did provide a 5% certified check on bid day, so we followed up with that, and then we just have our doubts. And also, part of the specifications was previous experience in moving to multiple use or multiple unit, such as a 10-plex. There's like 22 trailers involved. So, and being able to reassemble that, so, and they haven't demonstrated that experience either. They've done other work for us, but we're recommending the second low bidder based on those specifications and qualifications. At Hills Elementary, step 9 is substantial completion, and step 10, project acceptance. That project's been completed. All the punch list items are done. All the owners and warranty manuals have been received, so we're recommending the project be accepted. The nutritional services and freezer projects in design development, those drawings are at my office if you care to see them. Basically, the freezer, if you've seen it, runs north and south. We're designing a new structure to run east and west. It's a metal structure. We're designing a concrete structure. It'll be just a freezer unit, not a combination freezer cooler. And we're asking for approval of the design development plan. You, of course, will have another opportunity to approve this at construction documents and award a contract. Safety and security, again at Hills, we kind of did those projects simultaneously. That project has been completed, and we're recommending project acceptance. All punch list items are done, all warranty manuals and documents have been provided. At West High School, same thing, on the practice field. If you remember, this is a project that started before many of you came on the board, but we took a multi-level practice field and made it into a singular level, put in irrigation, seeded it, and I was out there just Friday, and it's looking pretty good. Grass is coming in. We also had Ryan Adams from ISU, turf specialist, look at it last week, and he was pleased with the progress of the turf. So we're again recommending that the project be declared substantially complete and project acceptance. And with that, I would answer any questions you might have.
Questions for Dwayne? Entertain a motion.
I move that we approve the Appendix 9 items as presented.
Second.
Further discussion? Kim, ready to vote?
Online voting is open. All votes have been cast and the motion carries with all directors voting in favor.
Next item on the agenda is agenda setting, the May 10th agenda. I will say we've got 2 or 3 really big topics here already. Anything on the 10th? At this point, we'll plan a work session as well. We'll talk about in the next work session. Talked about possibly on the 10th having another closed session on land acquisition. So that's probably the top priority to go into the 5:15 slot. I guess if that didn't happen, it could be an exempt session on negotiations. And if that didn't happen, it could be a closed session on superintendent evaluation. So I guess just go ahead and just know what might be the most urgent. I presume we're okay being a little flexible there, but number 1 is probably the land acquisition. I want to check, negotiations are proceeding along. I think our next big one's on May 2nd. Would there potentially be a request for an exempt session on the 3rd? That's a committee night, but most of us are here. And maybe we could do an exempt meeting between the two committee meetings. Phil, you and I are probably the two that aren't here. I can make that work for this. You want to plan to be here?
I think we are. I think Kim would send out, yeah. There's some things that we need to talk for A&E regarding, Kristen Post coming up. I think that's a good question. We could flip things. We could flip things from what we normally do, since A&E is usually left hanging, waiting for P&G to tidy up our semicolons. So I would propose that A&E go first if it's workable for Director DeLoach at 5:30. Ooh. On May 3, 5:30, May 3. What's that?
Either 5 or 5:30 would be great.
Okay. 5:15.
7, but yeah, 5:30 I can probably make somehow possibly happen.
I mean, if you can't, I could sub too. I mean, if you're coming anyway, so, I mean,
That would be great if you would do that, because there would be a crunch for me to get across over here.
Okay.
If we just set a hard time to
Yeah.
start, that would be helpful.
Yeah.
So that we don't.
Because I
sit
know,
around waiting.
I know it's coming second. It's like, what time do we start? Well, roundabout X.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly.
and we can confirm by Thursday, Jim, I think that's the base plan, but we can decide it's on or off by Thursday. Okay, any other agenda setting items? With that, entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? This meeting is adjourned. Work session will commence in a few minutes in the back. Thank you very much.